welcome to Procurement Pivots, the podcast for procurement professionals wanting to navigate change successfully and create career success on your own terms. I'm Donna Bowden, procurement career coach and founder of Narrate Your Career.
And I'm Laura Sellers, executive coach for procurement and founder of Coaching for Procurement. And between us, we bring almost 25 years of supporting and working with procurement professionals. And it's fair to say we've navigated many of our own career pivots along the way. And now we're here to help you do the same.
Each episode will share practical strategies, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you confidently tackle the changes and challenges in your procurement career.
Let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode on the Procurement Pivots podcast. How are you doing, Laura?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Donna. How about you?
I am good, thank you. Very good. Right, so today we're going to be looking at positioning, but from a very different stance today. So one of our more popular episodes of this year was us talking about successful steps to position yourself externally. But we know, like so many of our listeners are not interested in external moves. They're happy with their organisation, but what they want to hear about and focus on is how can they set themselves up for success with their internal positioning for what's next. So today's episode really is us delving into that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, it's definitely something that come across the conversations that I have. You know, it's about being career ready, isn't it? And about knowing to have that opportunity mindset, which we've talked about before in a previous episode. But yeah, just exploring in a bit further detail about what that means.
And I feel like probably quite a lot of what we've spoken about, we've touched on in different ways in different episodes, but we haven't had an episode that very much focuses on your own kind of progression within the organisation that you're working in right now. So we thought a good start point would be just really to kind of re-emphasize the importance of how you're showing up day to day, because that is what's going to have an impact on those people around you, including those people that may well have opportunities for you in the future.
Yeah. So what does that mean to you, Donna? How you're showing up? Because I guess from different aspects that we come at from our work, I'm intrigued to know what that means for what that does for the clients that you work with.
I think it's just very tied to communication. I think, yeah, it's like how, what version of yourself are you bringing on a day-to-day basis? So not just in the really big moments or with the really senior people, but I think the kind of the consistency with how, I'm going to come back to how you show up, but how you communicate, how you challenge, how you ask questions, how you bring ideas to the table, how you're building relationships. So I think, often it's the small actions that then lead to those future opportunities. It's not just in the big important annual review with your boss and, maybe your boss's boss, but it's like, how is it that people are seeing you in the day-to-day, and what version of yourself do you bring? Because I do think as well, like often when people are wanting to progress within an organisation, like often that is linear progression and it's stepping into bigger roles, more senior roles. But again, quite often you'll only really be considered for those roles if you're already perceived to be operating quite close to that level, even if you don't have the title. So I think, I guess an example is, someone at mid-level in, say, a category management or a procurement management role that is wanting to step up into leadership, you're only going to get that opportunity if the business or the individual see those leadership qualities in you day to day, I would say. So I think it's the consistency around how you're communicating, but also the level at which you're communicating at.
Yeah, I think they're great points to make, because communication, which we've talked about, and knowing what your natural communication style is also incredibly important. I think we've touched on it before as well in previous episodes around what are you known for? Are you known to be calm in a crisis? Are you known to be the one who connects the dots and including others? What are you known for? And I think, again, as you mentioned earlier, this small, consistent action to take. So I think that's something where people can get so bogged down by the day to day, oh, I need to network, or I need to do this, I need to do that when an opportunity comes up. Whereas actually, if you build it into a daily practice, just like make sure you're having a coffee with somebody once a week, or you're learning something new, which could be a 5-minute thing. You know, I think all of these little tiny consistent actions can compound. So I really like what you say about how you're showing up. Do you think as well, from what you said around the level that you're at and the level you're perceived at, like getting, you know, acting as the future you?
Yeah.
I'm interested to know what that means in terms of the courage and the confidence that people need to be able to do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, I find this whole topic fascinating also from a personal perspective as well, because, you know, now as a, you know, having pivoted to having become a business owner, you know, actually, I've had this asked of me like multiple times. It's like, where do you want to be in your business? And also, like, how does that version of you, the even more successful version of you, make decisions? You know, would you be more decisive? Would you be bolder with your decision making? And so, like, I think it's not even just the like, I mean, I said, how do you show up, as in how do others see you showing up? But it's even, yeah, I think that like the decision making, the kind of the action taking, the focus on your development, like what would that leadership version of you be doing right now? So not just the communication, but what actions would they be doing?
Yeah, like it's like visualizing, isn't it? It's about saying, right, well, the me in 12 months' time, the 6 months' time, and we do this in the goal setting of the coaching process as well. You know, what do you want to be seeing and doing? And also, I think it's important to visualize that, to know when you've got there, because sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for how far we've come. And I know we've talked about that before, because it's like we're so in the thick of it, we don't see how much progress we've made since the previous year. So I definitely think there's a lot of room for this by showing up as the person you want to be and that you want to be in the future. And being seen at that level, like you say, is like where are you trusted already? Because that will also give you clues of where you're already trusted by those in leadership and or the next level you want to get to. And we're not just talking about promotions, actually, are we? We're talking about maybe sideways moves or just moves into other categories or other areas of the business.
Yeah. I think it's also, I mean, going back to that kind of, you know, for going from a non-leadership role to a leadership role, you know, actually, how can you lead without the title? Like, what are the scenarios? You know, that might be people leadership, that might be mentoring, it might be an informal arrangement, it might be taking more ownership of a really important project or taking ownership of a part of a project. So I think it's, you know, whatever that ideal next step kind of direction is for you, it's kind of looking at how can you give yourself some exposure that's going to close the gap from where you are now to where you want to get to? And we definitely covered this in that kind of operational to strategic episode that we did. How can you get yourself more exposure to strategic activities when actually your role day to day is more expected to be more operational? And I think this is the same. So again, going back to your point, this isn't about just those upward moves, but yeah, many people in procurement, I would say a lot of them are quite curious at the moment. Do I want to stay in procurement forever? Actually, I'm working for an organisation I love. Maybe I might be open to moving out into the business at some point and then come back to procurement even. Because I think, yeah, and some businesses actively encourage that. Some businesses only hire at leadership level when people have had an operational leadership role and then more of a commercial role as well. So, and it's you know, it's actively encouraged for people to do that. So I think it's then, okay, identifying, all right, which areas of the business might be of interest. And look, if you're interested in that part of the business over there, how can you be more curious, more attentive, build better relationships, get yourself involved more? immerse yourself in their part of the business, because that's the beauty of procurement. You can do that in most cases. You have the opportunity to build these relationships with people all over the organization, and so focusing a bit more on the area that does interest you more is going to get you closer to that part of the business, and it might make a move over there at some point more accessible to you.
Yeah, and I think there's some great tips there around how to expose yourself more. But for me, I've seen it work really well in terms of cross-functional projects, volunteering to play a part, where procurement probably do have a role to play in it, but to actively show your interest in being part of that project. And also just getting to know other people that are in the business and asking what they enjoy about being that part in that type of role. Getting to know the people, if it's staying within procurement and looking further up, take the time to ask, tell me what you enjoy about being here, about what you've enjoyed. I'd love to know about your career path. People do like to talk about themselves ultimately. So while it might feel daunting to approach a senior member of staff, or a more senior member of staff, I think people are a lot more willing to help than what sometimes we think, and to be able to understand their career trajectory and what they think worked well for them to get to that point. Being really curious, as you say, can really open doors and give you different perspectives that you might not have had before.
Yeah, and I think so that kind of leads on to that internal visibility piece, doesn't it? It's I think we've spoken a bit about how you show up or how you're presenting yourself, but I think it's also how clearly are you demonstrating your value and your interest and your passions to those relevant people within the organisation. That's the thing. If people don't understand your value, they don't understand your value. So why would they consider you as someone like it? And that's where I think a lot of people find this really uncomfortable and really difficult, and particularly in procurement. I think it is a really interesting dynamic that, actually I even just this week I've had one of my clients say procurement are really good at selling. But then actually I've heard multiple other people say, like, in procurement, we're really uncomfortable with sales and selling, and we're facing off to salespeople and we don't like what they do over there. So therefore we don't want to be like that at all. So I think there are lots of different kind of viewpoints on this, but ultimately, if people do not understand your value and the problems that you can help them solve, they're not going to come to you to help solve their problems. And so the right stuff does need to be visible at the right levels.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And at the right levels, that's also it's about, again, being intentional, being strategic, being thinking about, who needs to see what in terms of the communication. I mean, we've talked about that again in the communication piece about how you can have one message and carve it up differently depending on the audience. The visibility piece might also be the same.
And I think that visibility, it's like, where are decisions made? Ultimately, who are making these big structural decisions or decisions about opportunities? Because sometimes actually your value may well be visible, but it's not to the right people that are going to be making those decisions. Or because I think you kind of you need to be known so that when those conversations happen, your name comes up in that conversation before before there's a role, before they've announced internally, oh, we're going to be creating this new opportunity. It's almost like, you want your name to be an obvious go-to name when they're starting to have those conversations to decide, do we do this or do we do this? And if we did, who would be the person? Because some of the time, like, especially internally, like, some roles will be advertised internally and some roles will very much be, offered to someone, very kind of cloak and dagger style. It's like a tap on the shoulder. We'd like to have a conversation with you about this. And they're not talking to anyone else at all in the business. Whereas other times it will be a really formal process and you're going up against lots of internal people and external as well. So, I think just trying to think about where might decisions be made and actually what level of relationship do you have with those people as well.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this because sometimes I remember a team member saying to me, "Oh, doesn't that seem like schmoozing? Like just going and like schmoozing." And I think no, it's about reframing it to be intentional about your communication with them. There's a difference between going and sucking up to somebody
Yeah,
as opposed to actually having a conversation with them about what you're working on, what they're working on, and being intentional, showing
yeah.
up to what you want out of your career. It's about being clear.
Mm, yeah. And I don't, yeah, I do hear that as well about the kind of, schmoozing, sucking up. But I think it's even, you're going to probably have some interaction with that person. It's not even just the one-to-one conversations, but, are you finding yourself in a room, in a meeting, for instance, with some of those really influential people? Like sometimes even just being more comfortable to give your view in a meeting, ask questions in a meeting, suggest ideas in a meeting, like that's going to get you noticed. Like often, unfortunately, like a lot of people aren't comfortable in those types of environments, but unfortunately, then you're not noticed in those environments as much. But it's, what are the other touch point opportunities where you can, without schmoozing or saying, hey, I'm amazing, but you can get people kind of noticing you maybe for the
Yeah,
first time as
yeah,
well.
completely,
Um,
completely.
I think like maybe some of you will have listened to our feedback episodes recently. I think this as well, like this is where feedback can be so incredibly helpful. Actually, if you are having grown-up conversations with your organization about future career path planning, future succession planning, etc. It is having those conversations to understand, right, okay, well, where do you see my gaps are
Mm,
between where I am right now and
yeah,
that sideways move or that upwards move, and where do you think I'm on track and maybe exceeding being on track, but actually what are those development areas that I could really focus on over the next 6, 12, 9 months, 18 months, however long that time frame is. What are the things I can do that's going to put me in a better position to actually have my name mentioned if that in that room, if that type of role comes up.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really like that approach, and I think it happens more often than is talked about in terms of those opportunities. I think it's again having your eyes open to it, because having that opportunity mindset is if we think that these opportunities won't appear to me, I won't be able to have more, that there's nowhere for me to go in the organization, then we don't see the other opportunities that there are. So I really like what you say there.
Yeah. And I think just the opportunity mindset for me is everything. It's I've seen it with clients, and they do reach a point sometimes and they're like you've just said, there's nowhere for me to go in the organization. It's like, well, how do you know? And it's like, well, structurally there isn't. It's like, but have you had that conversation, and have you opened the doors to those types of conversations? Because sometimes like roles get created around individuals. It doesn't have to already exist. And I've got a few clients actually I'm thinking of at the moment that it's like, they are considering some kind of pivot at some point, not necessarily immediately. And it's like, well, what skill set would help you to do that pivot in the longer term? And how can you use your current environment to enable you to get more exposure to that experience? And that role, it's unlikely that role is just going to appear from nowhere, but it can get created sometimes with the right conversation. And if the business doesn't know that you've got this real interest outside of your core job, like
Mm,
they don't know. So they're never even going to consider you for those types of opportunities if they do present themselves. So I think you have to be really careful. Like what you don't want is to be communicating, I'm not happy right now, I'm a flight risk, I'm potentially going to leave, etc. It's done in the right way, but it's
yeah.
like, look, I'm really committed to staying with the organisation. I'd love to explore what the longer term opportunities could be. I'm really interested in this. Like, how do you think I could get a bit more exposure to that over time? Not change my role right now, but I'd love to incorporate more of that in my day job, or I'd love to do a bit more strategic, or I'd like to be able to do some more creative stuff, or bring some more innovation in? How do you think we can make that happen?
I've got a great example of that as well. I totally agree. I mean, actually, for my own example, like the last 6 roles that I did in my in-house role were all brand new roles that were created. Not always with me in mind, there was the need, but sometimes it's around creating that need, isn't it? So, but there were some where it was with me in mind. And it's I think it's really interesting, like you say, to be able to share the interest that you have with others about, oh, I see a real opportunity for this, but I've also got a great example of a client who has done this. They're very entrepreneurial in their procurement approach, and that's gone down really well with the business. They've got great sponsorship, and then all of a sudden they're taking responsibility for, they've taken procurement really far in a short space of time, and now they're also taking on board another function. So I think that's a great example to be able to share who you are, and then the opportunities often create themselves.
Yeah.
Like you
And I
say,
love,
opportunity mindset's everything.
yeah, and I love, sorry to cut in, but I love that you've just used that sponsorship word, like, because we're talking about building relationships, but who are your advocates? Like, this is really important. Like, if you want to step up, you need people champion you. You need people that are behind you, that are like, they're the ones talking about you. Like, she's ready, she's ready, she's ready. You need that. So I think it's like, it's not just like building relationships with people, but it's like, actually, who are those champions going to be? Who is going to be your sponsor for that move? Who's going to back it? Who's going to then like actually help you to make it happen as well? Like, particularly, again, I know a lot of our audience are quite senior within procurement. You know, that senior level internal sponsorship is just so incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely. And because you can't always go it alone. You know, it's great to be independent. It's great to have that initiative, but like I say, sponsorship is really important as well, to have people in your corner. And I think that comes down and links into the feedback.
Yeah,
Into
yeah,
the
yeah,
feedback as we
definitely.
were talking about.
Yeah. And I think this kind of, opportunity mindset, there's also then that opportunity readiness as well. And so, I think I would encourage people to assume, if internal opportunities are going to present themselves, nowadays many of them will expect you to go through a formal internal process. In some businesses that's not the case, but in a lot of businesses you may still have to submit a CV. You probably are going to have to go through a multiple interview process. You might go through the exact same process as the external candidate. So actually, back from my recruitment days, some of the recruitment I did, I was having to shortlist from both their internal talent pool and their external as well. So, I think I would also encourage you to think about, what does it look like to be opportunity ready? Because I know people that have not put themselves forward for roles that they absolutely could have done. And they didn't, because they were like worried about the interview process, and I don't think I'm going to get selected, and therefore I'm not going to put myself in the mix. But I think actually, like, interviews, I think is a prime one for me. A lot of people, they'll start preparing for an interview when they've got an interview. But there's so much you can do in the background to get yourself really interview confident, way, way, way before you're even considering a move. And it's about being interview ready before you need to be. And actually, if you're interview ready, then you're going to put yourself forward for those roles, even if you think, oh, that's quite stretchy, but that's, you want stretch often with the role, because if there's no stretch there, then actually, is it going to give you really, what you're looking for, and are you going to outgrow it quite quickly? Sometimes it's about that, sometimes it's not. But I think just putting yourself in a position where you've built your confidence levels as much as you can, ideally, before, like, if you know at some point in the next 12, 18 months, I'm going to be ready for my next step. That might be sideways, they might be upwards. Then think about, what can you do now to build your confidence? So if that opportunity does present itself and it is a formal process, you're ready. you're ready for it. You feel confident stepping into those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points there. So, I mean, we've gone through quite a lot of different things to think about there. What's your biggest takeaway from this episode?
Oh, good question. I just think that there is usually more opportunity than is often obvious, and I've definitely seen people immediately consider external moves when actually there are many, many, many different avenues potentially that aren't obvious to them where they are. So I think it's just just being curious and open to looking for those possible signs that might lead to an opportunity at some point. Don't know if that's really answered the question, but
no, I think it is. I was going to come to opportunity as well. I think that's something we're really looking at here, because it's so easy to think there aren't opportunities internally because you're only looking at the structure, like we talked about earlier, and actually reframing, looking and thinking about what you want from your career next, and also being opportunity ready when it's not just immediate, thinking about, well, how do I want to bring more joy into my role? What does really interest me? What have I always thought was interesting about this department or the role above me or this, that, and the other? And intentionally having those conversations is definitely a huge takeaway for me.
Yeah. And get the sponsorship.
Yes.
Get the sponsorship, build the relationships and get the sponsorship, because then it's not just your kind of business case. You've got multiple people kind of backing you from the beginning.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
Right. Well, good to be here with all of you. Good to see you again, Laura, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, take care, everyone.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Procurement Pivots. We hope today's episode gave you actionable tips to help you to continue to move forward in your procurement career.
If you enjoyed the conversation, follow our episodes, share them with others, and please support us on our social media channels for others that might be interested to tune in.